Hello and welcome to this mostly German series, Quantensprungbrett. I'm honored today to have outstanding guests with Lynn and Paul Schmaltz, who have dedicated the last part of their life to research what the Iranian physicist Mehran Kesh has found out about plasma energy, and their specialty is to apply it to everything living. Humans, animals, plants, the agriculture. So I'm more than happy to interview them and see what they found out. Welcome, Lynn. Welcome, Paul.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. So I guess you intensely researched Mehran Kesh and all his writings and everything he has published. He's best known for his free energy devices, for which he uses plasma. So you want to talk a little bit about how you came to do what you do and what it is you're doing?
Our main focus is on health. And that's because I started researching Mr. Kesh's work because I have specific health problems myself and have been looking for answers for years. And what I found there has really helped me. And it's the use of plasma energy, which is the energy of the universe. It's what keeps all the planets from bumping into each other and maintaining their proper distances. And what we've done is a microcosm of the universe by breaking down molecules, compounds, into their monoatomic state, which means one atom all by itself, not hooked to any other atoms. When they're hooked to other atoms, they form molecules, which when hooked together, form compounds, which build into proteins, minerals, salts, this type of thing. All of the solid things you see around you, or at least that you think are solid. And so we've taken Mr. Kesh's information and used it to break down molecules into monoatomic particles that exhibit their own plasmatic fields. They're trying, each particle wants to be in combination with another particle. And they're trying to make that connection, so they're putting off a field of attraction or repulsion. And that field that they put out, trying to complete themselves, is the plasmatic field that we use to apply to health issues. There's lots of other applications. It's used in free energy devices in different ways, but our focus has been on health issues because of my specific problems. And so basically that's what we've done. We've made ganses, which are the monoatomic particles in suspension that we use the plasmatic fields of. And so I've used them to apply to myself for eye problems, diabetes, kidney problems, arthritis, and digestive, several other things. And along the way, we've run into many people with similar type problems that we have also helped.
It sounds
And,
terribly complicated, but basically what you create is water, informed
yes,
water.
we use the water, right? And the water becomes charged with the plasmatic field of the elements, the monoatomic elements that are in it. And that's what we use is the water on top. These are the monoatomic particles down here. This is the water that we use. We don't use this part. It's just like the battery, the thing that charges all the water. And the water is what we use. So you can see how fine these particles are. Now,
So,
this takes a while to settle back down, but once it's clear, then we can use it.
but obviously you use different monoatomic particles. It's not one size fits all. What do
Right.
you build your own energy station, or what do you call it, to create different kinds of GANs, and every GANs then has a certain way of influencing certain aspects of our life. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So what is the raw material? How do you create GANs? I mean, it sounds like terribly complicated to get something into a monoatomic state, which obviously we know it as compounds in every area of life. We know it as molecules, and it seems terribly complicated to create monoatomic stuff.
Creating the monoatomics is a complicated procedure. And it's not something that can be understood easily. It takes a lot of study, and there are a lot of steps. It's not something that you do in 1 or 2 days. Making a monoatomic state out of herbs takes approximately 4 to 8 weeks to go through the process. Making a monoatomic state out of, say, copper or zinc takes anywhere from 2 to 5 weeks. So, and it's a different process. You use a whole different method for making the GANs of metals than you do for making the GANs of herbs.
Oh, I guess so. And I know that I've had contact with students of Lynn&Paul, and I know many of them never got to the state of actually creating GANs. Whatever they tried, there was something wrong in the process, and they never got to making GANs. So I'm totally excited that you managed to actually create it.
Well, the biggest secret to making GANs of metals is the nano coating of the metal plates. The metal plates that you use in salt solution have to be properly coated with a carbon film that is built up from a caustic material and heat and water, and that takes a long time, and you have to do it properly or it will not make GANs.
What is your background to be able to study Kesh and then on your own you do it? Well, I know so many people who studied Kesh and cannot do it.
The main thing is persistence. I do have a chemistry major in college. I have a doctorate in veterinary medicine. I practiced veterinary medicine for 30 years. And I guess the combination of the background with persistence and no satisfaction from the medical establishment today that I set out to do my own research and my own work, and I have gotten results.
But I might add here, you've always been a little out of the box thinker since you were one of the first veterinarians in the 70s to use acupuncture on animals.
Wow.
Yeah, I used acupuncture on racehorses on the racetrack, and that's when it was real voodoo, witchcraft. But it worked, and I won some of the richest races in the world.
Wow. Yeah, that's thinking outside of the box, and I guess that's what we need, and we need a lot of experience. Often I have a feeling that once people get retired, they do what really is their life's purpose in a way that they find a new way of using the skills they have learned in our 3D world. Those are good skills, but not if you use them exclusively the way our society wants you to use them. So beautiful. So once you've created the scans, why would I use copper? Why would I use zinc? Why would I use herbs? What is the difference, and what do you create from that?
Well, the herbs, what we do is we study what neuropaths and other alternative medical practitioners use for their patients with traditional problems like diabetes and kidney failure, eye problems, these type of things. And we take all those materials and make them into a monoatomic state. And then instead of buying those materials over and over and over and using them up, all we use is the water on top, and it's got all of the plasmatic fields that we need in it. And so we take the advice of other people who have done all of the legwork and the study and the practice and the scientific testing and studies. And when we find something that really works, we make a GANS out of it and we use it. The metals, like copper and zinc, most of that information came from Mr. Kesh. He says zinc has a real strong influence on your emotions. I never knew that. You know, I take his word for it. He knows a whole lot more about it than I do. And so I use the zinc GANs in a situation of, say, anxiety, something like that. You have to be able to extrapolate and take what you need from here and what you need from here and put it together and experiment with it and see what works.
So how long have you been doing this research? How long have you been creating GANs since?
3 years.
2 years. And
3.
years. Yeah. So how many different GANs products or different types of GANs have you produced in those 3 years? And what is the application for them, like zinc for any kind of emotional imbalance, I guess would be the best word. And what is copper good for?
We have produced probably, 35 different GANSs. And your question about copper is good for inhibiting bacterial growth, viral growth, moles, spirochetes, and
what is that? Spirochetes?
Spirochetes, they're a microorganism.
Okay.
So we use the copper wherever there's an infection.
Yeah.
Like if you got an infection on your finger or something, a drop of copper Gans water on there will kill all the bacteria and fungus and everything in there and speed up the healing.
Great. So what other applications have you created in those 30 different Ganses? What is it good for? What can you do with the different things you have done, you have created?
Oh, we've got.
Well, I can kind of step.
Lynn's got a list here.
Yeah, I can step in with a list. The very first thing we did was to create what we call our plasma energy station. And the idea was to take different things that would support us. This happened after the time of the earthquake in Norcia, Italy. Okay, and it brought the question to us of what would we do in a disaster when nothing is being delivered to the town that we're in? There's no food delivery trucks coming in. You know, the water system has been compromised. People are needing some first aid and things like that. So the first thing that Paul did is we took combinations of food, herbs, homeopathics, all the GANs he's talking about, like CO2 and zinc and CuO2, calcium, magnesium, amino acids, hemoglobin. And what ended up happening is we made what we called a plasma energy station. Now this is one that I'm retiring because it's too small because we use so much of the water every day. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to show people when you have a plasma energy station, you set it up in something very convenient to use. This happens to have a spigot on it, so yes, it's convenient. And what I do for sending things over to Europe and outside of the country.
Before we continue with the pads, basically you have a large container of water, but yes, within the water you have your information or your energy, your plasma energy. What is in that water inside? And there's no exchange between is it a vial or is it?
Well, in the case of what is sent outside of the country, I send a pair of pads. And what I do is I send the instructions so that you're going to attach a pair of pads to a container like this. Mm-hmm. Say like this, okay? If you can see that. Yeah. And you can tape it, you can tie it, you can put it on with a rubber band, whatever you want to do with it. And that's going to act just the way a vial of water that we send out here. Now in the States, when people order the plasma energy station from us, they get 16 different vials. When it's ordered from out of the country, you get the water from the 16 different vials that's been placed. These pads have been soaked in it, and then they're completely dried, and then they're encased in protective plastic and protective plastic packing tape. In the wintertime in the US, we have to send out plastic vials. We're in Montana. Everything that we send out in glass ends up freezing and breaking. Oh. So there's a variety of ways that we just, depending on the time of year, how we handle things, or depending on where they go. Now, the pads that you receive are going to be treated with whatever product you decide you want to get. And we have on our website a list of all the products that we are currently making. And I'll have to
read them.
I'll have to add to this because we're adding about 5 more in the next week or so. But we have the basic plasma energy station, and then we have anxiety relief for people and pets. arthritis relief, clean mouth. We developed clean mouth after watching a series on dental, and they were recommending the removal of any in your mouth.
Yeah.
And when we listened to all that and listened to the ways that what they were using to change the conditions of any problems that had been caused, Paul and I were talking, and I said, everybody can't afford to go and have all these amalgam fillings removed, or a crown removed, or a root canal, whatever that has happened. So what can we do that would address the problem for everyday people that can't afford the more complete recommended treatment? So what happened is he ended up formulating what we call clean mouth. And it's something that you can, you just spray it in your mouth. I make my own toothpaste, so I spray it in that, or I pour some of the water in that. We make our own mouthwash, so I have some of that in our mouthwash. And so what it's doing is setting up the energy fields not only right in your mouth, but in all those tiny vessels that some of the researchers say, those vessels that are leading from your roots in your teeth would cover a tennis court. That's a lot of vessels.
And you know by now that any tooth corresponds to certain organs in the body by the meridian, the energetic flow. And so if you have one rotten tooth, no wonder you also have a rotten kidney.
Right.
If you can, most problems start in the mouth. So if you can really clean that energy, I mean, I'm just fascinated, because to get rid of those amalgam fillings, or how do you call them, amalgamant, or what is it? Anyway, this mercury stuff you have in your teeth, if you want to get rid of it, it's a very complicated procedure, because even the dentist needs to have his mouth protected, and you need fresh air from the outside to come in, and you have to suck out the mercury that goes up into the air. And anybody in the dental practice who breathes that in has the same toxicity, and it gets even worse once you start drilling in there and powdering the mercury. So to do that by neutralizing the energy field with something like plasma energy, that's just fantastic.
Well, we also then took the research out of a series that was on the brain, and Paul developed something that we call Clear Mind, so that it will address those. It has homeopathics, herbs, supplements, and those things that would support brain function. And then we also have what we call detox relief. And there's probably...
You're not promising any healing, of course. We're not talking about any of that. But when you talk about the brain, I think of Alzheimer, I think of Parkinson, which we know is a toxicity in the brain, usually by aluminum or by heavy metals, which accumulate, and then the brain doesn't work the way it's supposed to work. So you did something for brain clearing.
That's correct. And
it's to support the function of the brain. It's not to heal anything.
We're never talking about healing. But if I understand it correctly, it would neutralize the field of the heavy metals in the brain.
Right.
Yeah. And then the result would be clear thinking again. Exactly the way it works.
Well,
so
then
what else?
We put together what we call detox relief. And again, it was all the various things being used in a detoxification process. And I think we had over 150 items in there. So obviously when we list things on the website, we don't go into all the finite detail, but kind of the overview of the main ingredients. We have eczema relief. We have eye drops, and I'd like Paul to talk about the eye formula because it's been very useful for him.
I was diagnosed with cataracts probably 3.5, 4 years ago. And I was getting to the point where I was afraid to drive because I couldn't see. And it was starting to worry me. And so Mr. Cash came up with this formulation for eye drops for cataracts, macular degeneration, glaucoma, whatever's wrong with the eye. And so I made it and started using it. And nothing happened for several months, but then all of a sudden I started seeing better. After about 7 or 8 months of using it 2 or 3 times a day, I got my vision back.
Wow.
And that's been 3 years ago. I just renewed my driver's license this last month with no glasses. And I could see fine. And so that's, for me, that's huge.
It is huge.
You know, and I didn't go to the eye doctor or use any of their eye drops or have surgery, or the only cure for cataracts has been surgery.
Up to now, yes.
I did not have any, and now I can see fine. And so that right there in itself should be enough to convince anybody that plasma has good effects.
Well, and another thing with the eye drops is our son has dry eye. And so he was using some pretty expensive drops just every day during the day, several times a day. And when we made this, the eye drop formula up for him, he was delighted. He said, this works better than anything that I paid quite a bit of money for. And it seems that the relief lasts longer. He
didn't even use drops anymore.
Right.
His eyes are fine now. It's been about 1.5 years of him using the same drops that I use, and he no longer has dry eye.
So basically it returns the functions of the body to its ideal state.
Right.
Which we all come up with. And to my belief, I think there's a blueprint in nature on how things are supposed to work. And what I have a feeling is that this plasma energy, if you put the right stuff inside, it harmonizes with the blueprint, which is divinely given, just like plasma is a divinely given. It's there. We have never understood the workings, and we think that the more we specialize and the more we go into specific symptoms and treat this very specific symptom, that would help us. But everybody knows that, for instance, if you use nose drops, these, how do you call them, nasal drops, the body gets used to it. You need more and more and more, and after a while, your tissue within the nose gets rotten. It gets destroyed, and you get that bad smell out of the nose. So treating a symptom has never been a good idea if you don't get to the root, the cause of whatever is ailing you. And even if you don't know the cause with plasma, I have a feeling it's the harmony of nature which is restored. Can that be?
That, you always say that the plasma energy gives the body the ability to heal itself.
Yeah.
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 And that's where the healing comes from, is from your own body. And in looking back at our list of things, one of the things that has brought a lot of relief are the formula for gloves. And I'm going to show you some gloves because when I type a lot, my hands get sore. And so I might end up I have a little pair of gloves. Now this has been through the laundry many, many times. So I picked up little polka dots of all the lint of other things. And I've cut the fingertips off only because I don't like to have my fingers enclosed in gloves. And so I can type with these, but I can also just put them under my pillow and put them on my hands if they're kind of achy and just wear them when I'm sleeping. But then something else I've done, because I have floaters I have a lazy eye, so of course the floaters are in the eye that does all the work. And what's happened now is if I want to wear like an eye patch, I just stick it inside my glove. And then I can just rest my glove on my face when I'm sleeping, okay?
Oh, you don't even put your hand in the glove. You just have the
Yeah, I just hold it up and do this with it.
Yeah,
and raise the fingers so they're not tickling my nose.
Are you saying that you soaked those gloves once and then you have been having them in the washer for I don't know how many times and they still have the energy?
That's correct. And we do the same thing when we get new clothing, all our sheets, all our towels. The first time I put everything in the laundry and wash it, and I'll do an extra rinse cycle. I'll add some plasma water, maybe 1 or 2 cups, and just let it sit there for a few hours. And then I'll spin it out and dry it. And then the energy is in there. And that's a nice way to surround yourself with it, with your sheets, with your clothing. The thing with having, say, the glove formula, you can make more than 1 pair of gloves. And I told one individual who bought the gloves, I said, if you want to cut the fingertips off, that's fine, but put them in a jar of water and let them change the water. So now you can make however many pairs of gloves you want to make because you've got that.
Because the fingertips, the rest of they have the plasma energy in them, and they will, in a way, it's a contamination. Only it's a positive contamination. Whatever a small amount of the plasma, the informed plasma you put into water, then the whole water takes on that information or that healing energy.
Right, and then you can soak as many pairs of gloves as you want, give them to your friends and family.
But this also works if it's arthritic. It would also work with if you wanted to soak ace bandages or a knee brace, or if you wanted to soak your socks because of your feet. So there's all kinds of applications. Just be creative with it. And the water's going to carry your intention. You know what the combination is in the water, and then it's your intention that it's assisting with the removal of the symptoms. Now, one other thing, Paul made, he had some rings that he made with all kinds, 3 rings that were vinyl tubing that he put around his knee because of the conformation he was born with a crooked knee, and it's arthritic and it hurts. So he'd wear these 3 rings during the day, but they're uncomfortable to wear at night, so he'd take them off. Well, he was thinking about it one day, and he took the same plasma energy that filled these vinyl tubing rings, and he put it on the gauze part of these Band-Aids. See the little white gauze in the middle? Mm-hmm. And then he takes and puts an X of 2 Band-Aids on one side of his knee and a single one on the other side. And the reason for that is you're going to have the greater size giving to the smaller size to balance, and it balances what's in between.
So it creates a flow.
Yes, and he puts these on. These are fabric. They stay on through showers. They stay on a lot longer for him than they do me, because he asked me last night where all his Band-Aids had gone. I said, well, they fall off of me faster than they fall off of him.
My immediate reaction would have been to take a knee brace, one of those knee socks, however you call them, and soak them with the plasma water. But
Right.
that doesn't create that same flow that you have if you have one part with more energy than the other side. Or, I mean,
No,
I would take
it wouldn't be quite as effective, because if you got double energy over here and
Yeah.
single energy over here, you get a balance between them. If you got the same energy on both sides, you've already got a balance and there's no flow between the two.
Yeah, and if you take it like a sock around the knee, then it has the energy from all sides. So
Yeah, so it's better to have more on one side and less on the other side.
But in that vein, couldn't you just take a little patch cloth that you treated with the same water and put it on one side of the knee brace to create the gradient?
Yeah, you could do that.
So you have the greater on one side and the lesser on the other side.
yeah.
Okay.
And you reuse that endlessly because you don't have to stick it to your skin.
Exactly. And
so many ideas that come up once you start getting your head around it.
well, it really does. And I think back, and maybe part of my approach to it is I'm pretty creative at mixing ingredients in the kitchen, sometimes too creative, and the kids would say, don't keep this recipe. But then I've also worked with essential oils, and you know that there's always basic oils everybody likes to have, but then there's combinations of those oils that do extra things. And it's the same way with plasma energy. You kind of have the very basics that have been taught about, but then when you start combining things, you have a lot more that you can add to what I call your plasma pantry. Okay, and we also have like inflammation relief. We have insomnia relief. And I just take, after we've made the main GANs, here's my insomnia relief bottle. And I have a vial in the bottom. Now, if I had a patch, I'd just have a patch attached to it. And I just open this jar and drink a couple of swallows before I go to bed. And the difference that has made for me is I don't have to take melatonin or anything else that might make me sluggish the next day. I'm also, for a long time, I was kind of a 6-hour sleeper and then, not very good sleep. Now I'm a 7.5-hour sleeper. I can count on that all the time. And sometimes 8 hours, sometimes 7 hours, but 7.5 is the medium for me now. And so that's a way of using that. And this is a jar we just set up. This has Clear Mind in it. Okay, so we can just open it up and have some of the Clear Mind. But I also have that in the spray bottles by my desk. If I'm just sitting here typing and going, I'm getting a little tired of this or whatever, I can just take a few squirts of Clear Mind.
And squirt it into your mouth.
Sure. And for that matter, I could spray a little on my head if I wanted to. We have lung support, and a woman who's a therapist.
I'm still fascinated by the fact that the energy has to flow on your knee. Now, if you want Clear Mind, wouldn't it be a good idea to put more energy here and less here? Instead of, I mean,
you could do that.
Put 2 squirts over here and just 1 over here.
Or what you can also do is, if you have a hat you wear all the time, put a double pad over here and a single pad over here. And that would address the movement back and forth. Now, when I send the patches, they're thicker. One has 3 thicknesses to the single patch. So you still have that gradient effect.
And they're informed or they're energized with the identical stuff.
Yes.
So,
yes.
Okay.
And gosh, we've got lung support. That was sent to us. All the things for that was sent to us by an individual who was spending over $1,000 a month on herbs that supported a lung condition that individual was working with. So, that's pretty expensive month after month after month. So Paul made a GANs of it. And then what we do when people send us things, we have a doctor in Florida who wanted everything done for supporting the thyroid. Mm-hmm. And so I said, you research it and you send us what you would like to have in there. And she sent us a lot, and that's going to be ready to go out this week. And we've had it for a couple months in process. So that'll be...
That's all naturopathic stuff, which...
Yes, it's herbs, homeopathics, essential oils, supplements. And her idea was kind of on the same idea of the food station. What if there was an event that happened that, say, she's in a part of the country that gets hurricanes. So what if she was, in an area that couldn't receive supplies? Now she would have something on hand that she could utilize. And when we go back to the idea of the food, when we did the plasma energy station, we took all the supplements we were taking, all the vitamins, the homeopathics, whatever we had, and that went in as part of that. We decided to test it. And so we decided for 10 days, all we're going to do is drink our plasma energy station water.
Instead of eating food.
Instead of eating food. Now, on the third day, our son invited us to a family dinner. And so we got up to his house and we went ahead and participated and said, gee, it's kind of nice to eat a dish meal. So, of course, he's going, what are you guys doing? He was here the next day. All right, you better explain to me what you're doing, because he didn't know to what extent we were utilizing the plasma energy research. So in that 10-day period, we ended up for 10 days, we ate 3 dish meals. And we did not have headaches. We were not dizzy. We might have lost a few pounds, but then it stabilized. We weren't cranky. The biggest thing we missed was the social conditioning of food.
I can imagine.
Hearing it, smelling it, chewing it, sitting over the meal. So what we finally did is we took a couple of wine glasses and we put our plasma energy water in it, and we'd sit down and we'd bless it like we usually did. And then we'd say, well, I think tonight I'm going to have a Greek meal. Well, Paul doesn't like Greek, so he was going to have a different kind of meal. And so we'd cheers and have our plasma energy. So we know that does work. And in a situation where there's lessened availability to food, well, then you've got to back up with your plasma energy water, and you can scale back on what you might need to conserve on and just keep adding. All you do with this, once your station is set up with your patches on either side, you're just going to add filter or distilled water to this over and over and over. And people that live in the cities here in the States, I tell them if they don't want to haul distilled water, if they don't have a filtering system, I tell them to get something like the zero water filter that will filter out a lot of things straight from tap water, and to put their pads or their vials on the outside of that container. You can get them large enough, they have a spigot. So it's an easy way to have the water available all the time.
Isn't the method, once I've put my 2 pads on the water and I have maybe a gallon of water, which is now, how long does it stay? 24 hours until it's fully informed?
Overnight.
Overnight, okay. Then the fully informed water, I could take a bit of that and put it into fresh water, and that would get powerized too, wouldn't it?
Yes, and it doesn't, I tell people there's no expiration date on your plasma water, and it doesn't wear out, okay? And it doesn't diminish if you want to take your water and give a vial of it to someone else or make patches for somebody else. What they receive is not diminished from what you received, and what you received was not diminished from what I sent you. You have the same strength.
You're bad business people, dear. Once everybody understands that from that, how do you call it, informed or healed or GANS water, which now has perhaps the ability to feed me, I can just fill up a vial and put that into the next container of water, and that way the next container gets just the same power as the original one.
Yes.
Our goal is not to get rich. Our goal is to spread the information so that people will have the information and they can use it if they so desire. If they think it's nonsense and don't want to use it, fine, they don't have to. But it's available.
Just one question appears for your eye drops. Did you use distilled water? I mean, it has to be sanitized, or you can't use.
No, it's got a little bit of copper in it. So if there's any contamination, that copper will kill it.
So and distilled water obviously has different abilities than a normal clean filterized tap water. So what did you use? Just
I use tap water that has been filtered.
Yeah, and then the copper will disinfect everything, and that way you can put it into your eyes. And probably
the copper GANS.
Yeah, it's the copper GANS water.
Yeah.
What we make our GANS with is fresh mountain spring water that we get off of the mountains behind our house that are 11,000 feet high.
Wow.
And there's a huge snowpack up there. And when we get it from about 10,000 feet, it flows down through the mountains and the rocks, and we gather it. There's a area to where people can go up there and fill their water jugs, and that's where we get our GANS water.
Had it in a laboratory to find out if that chemtrail stuff has come down with it?
No, I have not done that. I don't know.
Okay, because
here in Montana, we have fewer chemtrails than anywhere I've ever been.
Great.
Because there's fewer people they want to spray the cities rather than the sparse population up here in the mountains.
Yeah. And anyway, I guess that with the right GANS, you could also neutralize that stuff. I mean, what's partly what's in there, and just create a GANS for water that is contaminated by. If you live in a city, I mean, I heard a study which came out of California where they measured molten snow, and it was just the most poisonous stuff you could imagine. Fresh from the mountain, at the very top of the mountain, the only thing it had received was chemtrails, obviously, and so.
Well, the water we use flows down through the mountain, through the rocks, and comes out of a spring. So it's filtered through the sand and the rocks and the minerals of the mountain.
Beautiful. Thank God there are still places like that on this planet. Not too many left.
No.
Well, and then that brings to mind that we will take the peace formula and put it in our local creek, and that flows into the Yellowstone River, which flows into the Missouri River, which flows into the Mississippi, which flows into the Gulf of Mexico, which then is the neighbor to the Atlantic. And so we figure that piece has made it around the world.
Yes, it evaporates into the clouds and it rains down in a different part of the country. So I have an information thing around my neck, and since I'm traveling around Europe, at times when I find specifically filthy water, I just drop one of those in there with a lot of intention, also knowing that this is one way how it doesn't matter where in that water circle you start, whether it's a small creek or a lake, it will evaporate, it will flow on, and after a certain amount of time, we are going to heal this planet.
Well, and we do have an intention, and I don't have it in front of me to read it to you, but it's basically that all the drops of water that have left here share the intention with all the other drops of water that left here to support the good health and energy and peace of all living things, which includes the planet we live in, our Mother Earth. And so we send that intention. And at this point, as you say, with the drops of water crossing many continents, we would say that intention is everywhere.
Beautiful. Let's talk about some more. I'll publish that list you were reading. So what else can plasma water do? I've heard that there is, it can keep out bugs. There are certain animals or certain critters which seem to not like it, or what are you
flies and pestering insects don't like it. They leave when you spray it around. It's CO2. That's what we use. CO2. We use a combination of CO2, zinc, and a tiny bit of copper.
Mm-hmm.
And it puts out a plasmatic field that the little insects don't like, and they just leave.
You put it in a spray bottle, and you spray your door frames and your...
Right.
Yeah, I have a spray bottle here, and actually it's one I spray the cats with if they come and they're getting into mischief. But it's also one I take and I sprayed around all the doors, all the windows, on the screens, over the thresholds, and then the outside doors, just right on the doors. And last summer, from when we had warm weather around the beginning of May to the end of October, we probably only had maybe 8 flying insects in the house for the whole summer. I mean, it's a very boring life for 2 cats who'd like to go after the flying insect. But I'll see them, and then I won't see them. Like a fly might come in, and then I don't see it again. I think they go back out to the front door, and they're waiting to be let out. And that was certainly the case with, why don't you talk about Bob and his bees and what happened with Paul has made a combination of shungite, silver Gans water, and then the use of magnets. And so go ahead and talk about.
There's this beekeeper down in Florida who lost a 10,000 beehive to what he calls hive beetles. The beetles collapsed the colony and killed all the bees. And so I was talking to him about it, and I made up a formulation using shungite, which is a Russian mineral, comes from Karelia, Russia, close to Finland.
Yeah.
And that, along with some silver Gans and a magnet, creates a torsion field that is repulsive to hive beetles.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sent him some of that, and he sprayed the hive with it inside and out, and killed all the beetles. They just all died off. And then he started this hive up again, and he said it's doing great. He put some, I made some of that same formulation into powder, and he put some powder in there. The bees walk through it. The bees love it. They think it's great stuff. And they're happy and healthy and producing more than they've ever produced. And so, you know, he's been sending me honey, and it's really, really good honey. And so that's just another application of the plasma energy in combination with shungite minerals, which are mostly carbon, plus they've got a little bit of all of the elements of the periodic table in them.
Yeah,
so
it's very, very special stuff. I
right.
know about shungite. I have it in my house, actually. Even in my car, I carry it along. I put it into my water and just let it sit there. What I find so amazing is, how does nature know that this is good for the bees and bad for the beetles? I mean, how do the beetles, they must have a different kind of energy necessity than bees have. What I learned is that torsion fields, if they turn left, they're not good for life. They're harmful for living things. And if they turn right, then they are very welcoming to anything living. So
right.
you can turn them with the right combination of a magnet and shungite and whatever, you can make them. And I think that also applies to our electromagnetic frequencies, our cell phone towers, our new 5G, which is coming. Those are also torsion fields, as far as I heard, that turn left, and you need to make something that turns them right. So do you have anything for that?
All right, this is a telephone magnet that Paul made that I put on my phone now. It has double back sticky tape on it, but I knock this thing around quite a bit coming in and out of purses, so I put a little tape over it too. But this is what it is, and the white on it, you peel off and the double sticky tape is on that. So we have this on anything electronic in the house, whether it's an iPad, a phone, the Wi-Fi box, the TV, the computer, anything that's emitting electronic fields. And then Paul's made a bigger one, if you want to hand me that one, that is, this one has 2 magnets on it, and it goes on your breaker box, your electric panel in your house, and it just goes on the door of it facing into the room. And then what
is the black stuff with the fungite and the little magnets are keeping it on, or what is the black?
Paul has molds that he's poured the.
This is shungite.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shungite, silver.
Shungite with silver GANS water and 2 little magnets.
Wow.
Okay, and that sticks right on the electric panel that comes into your house.
Mm-hmm.
And it changes the torsion fields of the
electricity.
Yeah, smart meter.
The Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Of the smart meters, and because that's harmful electromagnetic energy that's coming in from that smart meter, but this changes the rotation on it, like you were talking about, from left to right, and makes it favorable to you rather than harmful.
Now, something I want to mention too is a woman at the post office had carpal tunnel surgery, and she came back and her hands were still sore. And so I gave her a pair of gloves. And told her to wear them at night. Well, Paul said, tell her, she had a place right here on her hand that still hurt a month after the surgery. Paul said, tell her to put that magnet under her glove. And she did that. And I saw her the next day. And all she did was just set it on her hand and put the glove over it. And the next day she said, my hands aren't sore. I have been carrying packages for 7 hours and they don't hurt. And so it may be that the torsion fields of pain are in opposition to our well-being fields. I'm guessing that from her reaction.
They wanted to operate my carpal tunnel syndrome 8 years ago. I never did anything, and it's fine.
Well, you know, the other thing with this, we've made, Paul has made pendants. And so there's the plain shungite pendants, which look like this. And why would I want that if it's already on my phone? When I walk into a restaurant or into a gathering of people and everybody has cell phones, I'm walking into an electromagnetic soup, okay?
Oh, yes.
And there may be Wi-Fi in the place that you're in. They may have TV sets. They may have microwaves, and everybody's got their phones going. So I have this on my phone, but I can wear this on myself. And then we also have the energy water called New Tech. Well, I didn't pick it up, but it's a set of pads again called New Tech Frequency Relief. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm reading articles where people are taking the shungite and they're adding it to their paint and they're painting their exterior walls, you know, like on the inside of their house for an added layer of protection. Well, I really make a mess when I paint. I really don't like to paint. So I thought, well, why not just have New Tech Frequency Relief water, and then I'll just go spray those walls. And I'll spray the curtains, and I'll spray the doors, and do it that way, because it's going to have a plasma presence on it. And Paul, you can talk about the Amazonite and the lapis.
This is a
so genius that you just take that informed water, the plasma water, with the repellent for any kind electromagnetic smog, whatever. You spray it on a curtain or you spray it on your wall. It dries off and the energy sticks. That's just amazing. I mean, it's we have to wrap our heads around these solutions that can be so simple once you have all the complicated stuff to create it out of the way. So is are the magnets also informed with the plasma water?
Yeah. No, the magnet is surrounded by the plasmatic field, and the shungite in combination with the silver Gans water and the magnet creates the torsion field. Okay. You can do it without the magnet, but the magnet makes it stronger.
Okay.
Okay, and like in this one here, you can see the stones in there. Mm-hmm. That's Amazonite, mm-hmm. which is a mineral, semi-precious mineral that comes from around the Amazon River that has a lot of special qualities that my body needs. And so I put it right here in this magnet, and then when I go out, I put this on, and I'm protected from all the Wi-Fi and the electromagnetic soup that's on the streets and in the restaurants and in the stores. And plus I get the extra benefit of the Amazonite crystals that are beneficial for me.
So then we also have lapis.
I also have lapis, and it has special characteristics
Oops.
that a lot of people really like this, and they say it
Beautiful.
energizes them.
It's beautiful. It's a very interesting kind of jewelry, actually.
And you know, something we haven't talked about has been the benefits that you've received from the plasma water in his overall well-being. In being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at the age of 44, and we can figure out where that might have all originated if you just hear that one day in the military he went down a row with people on either side shooting vaccines into his arms. Well, you know, what did that set up for later on in his life with his organs? So
I mean, from diabetes type 1, isn't that the one that is completely incurable and leads down the road to kidney failure and death within, I don't know.
Right.
Is that the one? And you get more and more of that, whatever, the insulin, and after a while, nothing works no more.
That's exactly right. Now, instead of using more and more insulin, I'm using less and less. I used to use 34 units a day. Now I use 16. So it's half of what I used to use. I did have kidney failure. I have a kidney transplant.
Ooh. How long is that ago?
That's been 14 years.
15.
15 years.
Are you one of the longest survivors with a kidney transplant? I mean, 14 years, when I hear about that, usually it's not that long.
That's right. It's usually 8 to 10 years. But what
did you do?
My kidneys now, my kidney function test, a creatinine clearance is 1.5 or 1.6. Sometimes it's tested at 1.5 and sometimes 1.6. And when I had my kidney transplant, a few years later, it was 1.6 right after my transplant. It started coming up, and it was up to 2.2. And when you get to 2.4, you got to think about getting a new kidney again.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I started using the plasma water. I started drinking it, and then I wear these patches under my shirt that are made with plasma GANS water and stuck in my shirt. And I use one in back and one in front. The one in back is twice as strong as the one in front. And my kidney functions reversed and started getting better and better and better. And the doctors don't say anything about it. They asked me a couple of times what I was doing, and I said, I'm using plasma energy. And that's the end of the conversation. They don't want to talk about it anymore because they don't know what it is. They don't teach it in schools.
Yeah, but the problem is they don't, not only that they do not know, but they do not want to know. Because of course, if they put you onto one of those machines to wash your kidneys, that's a lot more money they can make. They can build a whole new clinic to do that. And
I'm
putting pads on your kidneys.
I was on dialysis machine for 8 years before I got a transplant.
Oh my goodness.
That's a very long time.
That's a long time.
Oh my goodness. And now your kidneys are better or are as good as new as the one you got transplanted with.
They're just as good as right after my transplant, yes.
And from there it deteriorated, and then you started the plasma water, and then it got better again to where it was when you got transplanted.
Right.
That's an amazing story. It's only anecdotal. We're not talking about healing, but
Right.
anybody listening might want to copy some of this information and just try it
But
themselves.
but it takes a lot of study, dedication, and hard work, persistence mainly. And it's because I love my wife so much, I don't want to leave her yet.
Well, it needs persistence to apply it, like the drops for the eyes. For half a year, nothing, and then suddenly it improved. But all the rest is the work you have put in. If I'm the consumer, all I need to do is use it regularly. Isn't that it?
Right.
And
That's
it takes a very special kind of a person to really dedicate, I don't know how many years of your life to understand. I don't know many people who have actually been able to put into practice what Keshe teaches. I know a lot of people who try to build his free energy machines or whatever, but it's so tricky to have every little step correctly that most of them fail, and then of course the motivation is gone and they leave it and it doesn't work. So thank you, Paul, for gifting the world with something which I'm just enthusiastic to understand that once I have one energy station with all the possibilities, I can multiply it infinitesimally.
That's right.
Wow. Any last word?
Well, I just tell people to be really creative with the uses. And, you know, one of the things I've done, okay, I've treated scarves. And let's say you're sitting and you're tasking and you're getting, you know how you get the weary neck, you've been reading a lot and everything, you just tie your scarf around you. And then pretty soon you don't even notice that your neck is bothering you. And so there's so many ways that we can utilize it in very simple ways. It doesn't, the complicated part is already finished. That was making the GANs and getting the water prepared. And then the next step was getting it into the vials or into the pads that I make. And from there on, just use it. Just use it and put your intention with it, what it's going to help you accomplish or your body to accomplish. And, you know, we give it to our cats. We use it on plants. And the people who are using the station water on plants often will send me pictures. One woman sent me a picture, and honest to goodness, it was not a tomato plant. It was a tomato tree. It had gotten so big. And they're saying that they're growing faster, they're more vigorous and healthy. So you can use it. You know, we don't want to forget about our plants and our animals. And the man in Florida put a bottle of the plasma station water. He just took like a water bottle and hung it in the side of a trough that all the farm animals drank out of. And he had several troughs, so he just put it in one. All the animals would only drink out of that trough. So he had to put more bottles in the other. Yes, and they knew. And so it was just like immediately they went to that. So there are many, many uses. And on our website, I've written different blogs. I've shared information on how to create a perimeter around your property, so of what I call peaceful or plasmatic energy, to create almost like a dome effect. And one of the blogs I wrote in November of 2017 was after Hurricane Maria, and 90% of Dominica was destroyed. And I show a picture of Tom Salas' parents' place where he had made plasma energy and placed a jar in their garden. Mm-hmm. Their entire property was untouched. There was not a leaf missing from a plant. The flowers were all still blooming. The house was untouched. And about 30 feet out from that bottle in the garden, there was complete destruction. They lost a tool shed and another shed, and all the plants looked like a wasteland. All the leaves
and all
were...
the neighborhood destroyed?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
And they had like a protective dome. So I've told people, take that, and a friend of mine put patches around her apartment building. Well, the landscapers came and took all the patches away. And so she said, what am I going to do now? And I said, take a spray bottle and go spray the rocks around the perimeter. They're not going to remove the rocks. And now you've set up your fields. And so if you go around the perimeter, and then let's say you go to the highest point in the place you're living in, you're going to create a special dome effect. So.
And one thing we need to really stress here before we end is the power of intention.
Thank you for adding that.
You have to put your intention into what you're doing. And it can be as simple as when you're working with the stuff and making it, or putting it in a vial, or putting water in this energy station, just to say to yourself, this water is going to nourish my body, my mind, and make me very, very healthy. And this water is going to help anybody who drinks it. And we always send out everything that we do with that intention, so that our intention is emotional, heartfelt, and it goes with the things we send out. So if you'll add your intention to it, that makes it even stronger.
At the very end, I always add gratefulness to that. Thank you, universe, for blessing us with something that amazing. And thank you, Paul and Lynn, for doing all that. Paul, especially, for doing all that research. But I think you were just as participating in that, because didn't I hear something that Mehran Kesh is so difficult to understand, and the people he has on his show with their very different accents, so you typed out everything?
I did for about 112 lessons. And when I started, Paul said, well, I can't understand. And I said, oh, no problem. I'll just type this up. Sometimes you eat a big bite, right? And for
how many pages was that? A book like that?
Well, you know what happened? For every 10 minutes of recording, it took me about an hour, because I had to go back and forth and replay to understand words and accents. And so it was many hours, because those classes were 3 and 4 hours long. So every week I had a job to do, and it was to sit down and type. So.
Well, I'm just tremendously grateful for you, the two of you, to have dedicated yourself so much to something that now can serve basically the whole world. And yes, and that you even distribute it so freely, or of course you have to sell it first. That's basic, since we still live in 3D without money, nobody has anything to buy, but then to multiply it later on.
If you don't put a value on it, nobody will put a value on it. We gave stuff away for a long time. People wouldn't use it. They'd set it on the shelf, or they'd throw it away, and they wouldn't use it because they had no value on it. We started charging for it, and people started using it. So
what a messed up psyche we have, with money as our top goal, when that at the very end you can neither eat it nor does it make you happy. And it's just a funny piece of paper. I mean, somebody prints the queen on it and another person makes it in all different colors. Some people have stones on their money bills, and it's the belief we have in it, but it's
right.
time to get rid of it.
Now I'm going to do some classes on how to do what I have done. And I'll do it in plain English where people can understand it easily. And I'll show how to make the metal ganzas, how to make the herbal ganzas, and how to do all the other things, and where to get the supplies and all that kind of stuff. But I'm going to charge for it, because if I just do it free, people will not use it. So there's going to be a fee.
Well, it'll just be a digital product that we offer on our website. And, you know, we've talked about this for a long time. And in our experience, as Paula said, we always give heartfelt, and it's disappointing when the gift is ignored. But I have a section on our website about intention. And you know, I think it's very important that we have an understanding of that. And everything Paul makes goes into your pyramid.
I also use a pyramid to strengthen the torsion fields. And it's been shown by Russian research and Japanese that the Russian pyramid, which is a different configuration than the Giza pyramid, creates a torsion field that is beneficial to the human body. That's why you see people meditating inside of pyramids. And I take all my finished products, put them in the pyramid overnight, and they get that proper torsion field from the pyramid that I made. And the pyramid has got shungite in the bottom and a shungite capstone on the top that helps create the proper torsion field. And so that's another added asset that I got from Charlie Zeiss, he shows you how to make them on his website. Only plasma energy, only
Shungite?
PVCpyramids.com. Only PVC Pyramids is Charlie Zeiss's website, and he shows you how to make.
How do you spell his last name?
Zeiss.
Oh, that's German, Zeiss. That's the best binoculars in the world, called Zeiss Jena.
And I don't want to forget to give people our website, which
Definitely.
is plasmaenergysolution.com. Plasma Energy Solution, singular, no S on the end, .com.
Okay, yes, I'll post that at the end of the video. I'll add it to the video, and of course also put it onto the YouTube description so people can
and people will find frequently asked questions, testimonials, articles I've written, product descriptions, and then we've done quite a few videos that are on YouTube, but we also have them on our website. So they're instructional on how to make your energy pads, how to set up your energy station, things that you can use it for, and just some short topics that Paul also did, such as cataracts in pets, anxiety, lots of things.
Of course, the majority of my audience is German, and many of them just don't understand it. That's why I'm going to translate this interview. Maybe we should think about finding a way of translating some of those videos to get them out into the German-speaking realm, which is Switzerland, Austria, and Germany. It's such a pity there's so much on your website. And of course, anybody understanding English is just a treasure trove you can find there. But anybody who doesn't is difficult. So
Yes.
just to repeat, you can order at your website. You have a chart of what we can order, and then you don't ship vials because obviously also the European Union won't let them in. Anything with a liquid that looks like a medicine, the European Union won't let it in. But the energy pads, which are just as effective, those go into a plain envelope and come with first-class mail, and that takes between a week, 2 weeks, sometimes 5 days, I've found, depending.
Correct. And we can even treat printer paper with the water, and it can travel that way.
Gee, so that's yes, and of course, once I put the printer paper around my glass container, the water within the glass container is now fully energized and informed with the information of the plasma, and then I can fill it into a vial and put the vial into the next container, whatever. There's endless ways of multiplying.
Right.
Right.
And then printer paper would be just as good as anything else. But then if I do want to put a pad on here, I would have to do my own pads from the informed, the energized water, and then drip it, dry it, and put it into plastic. There shouldn't be any air exchange, should there?
Correct. You want to dry it completely and then seal it completely. And I tell people if the plastic seal or the plastic around it gets worn, put the whole thing into a new plastic. You don't have to take it apart, just put the whole works in a new plastic baggie and tape that all shut. And it'll still continue to work.
Yeah, the other thing is couldn't I make a new one from the water?
Sure. And the other thing you could do is the same idea with cloth. Yeah. You know, if you didn't want plastic against your skin, you could take, say, a double, triple thickness of cloth on one side that you had treated and a smaller thickness on the other side and use it that way.
Use it so then with the cloth, it would be in contact with the air. If it's a kitchen paper, why do I put it in plastic so that it doesn't destroy itself, or should it be airtight?
Well, mostly
it doesn't matter if it's airtight or not. It's dry. The only time it's going to mold is if you put it in there wet.
Obviously.
Okay,
yes,
so
if I think about spraying a wall, which would then obviously dry off and still have the information in it.
Right.
Okay. So I could basically use it without a plastic wrapping, or put it onto cloth directly and don't need a plastic wrapping either.
Right.
Yeah, the plastic is only to save the integrity of the paper.
Okay.
That's all.
Get it.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Many, many thanks. What a wonderful interview. Thank you both. And have a great day. I'll have a great evening.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, you will. Thank you.
Wonderful.